Om Namo Narayana and welcome back. We are working our way through the complete Ramayana, or if it's not absolutely complete with every single word as written in the original version, because there is many versions of this story based on different cultures and religions and regions in the world. I feel like this version that I have is probably in the upper hierarchies of the complete, good versions. It may be missing a few things. I'm actually not sure if it is or if it is not, but I feel like you're getting most of the story as written originally. Today we're doing chapters 6 and 7 in part 1. Chapter 6 is called Ayodhya's Kings and Its People. The king Dasarthya, a scholar in the Vedas, who has collected all knowledge, is a far-sighted one, who has great splendor, a leading light to his citizens, a great charioteer of the Ikshukvaku clan, a performer of fire sacrifices, who is an expert in the practice of dharma, who is in control, who is equal to a sage, who is the royal saint, who is famous in the 3 worlds, who is strong and a destroyer of enemies, who has lots of friends, who has fully controlled his sense organs, who is wealthy, who has other great possessions, who can be compared to Indra and Kubera, lived in the city of Ayodhya. Being powerful, he protected all the world and could be compared to Manu, who ruled the world earlier. That king, who was truthful and who strictly followed the 3 types of dharmas, being dharma, artha, and kama, ruled the great city of Ayodhya, similar to Indra, who ruled his city Amaravati. In this great city, people were happy. They followed dharma. They were well learned, owned riches and possessions, spoke the truth, and were without greed. In that great city, there were none who have not accumulated wealth, or one who has not achieved dharma, artha, and kama, nor one who did not possess food grains, cattle, and horses. In that great city, one who has lust, who is a miser, or one who is cruel, or one who is not learned, or one who is an atheist, could not be seen anywhere. All men and women were righteous in character and had full self-control and were prosperous. They had good conduct and behavior and lived like sages. There were none without ornaments, without a coronet, without garlands, deficient in worldly enjoyments, getting their limbs anointed and without applying expensive aromatic oils on their body. There were none who did not eat well, or who were without charitable nature, or who were without wearing bracelets in their upper arms, or who did not have ornaments on their neck, or who had not restrained their self. In that city there were none who did not kindle a sacrificial fire, or those who did not perform sacrifices, nor thieves, nor mean-minded persons, nor people of improper descent or mixed caste. The Brahmins in Ayodhya were interested in performing their duties, had control over their senses, were charitable by nature, were self-controlled, did self-study, accepted charity, and their marital relation was confined to their wives. During that period there was not a single atheist, nor one who told a lie, nor one who was jealous, nor incompetent or illiterate, nor who has not learned their shastras. In the city of Ayodhya, there was no Brahmin who was not an expert in the branches of the Vedas, or one who did not perform penances, or one who did not donate in thousands to the one who was in distress or vexed in mind. In that city there was no man or woman who did not have wealth and beauty, and it was not possible to a person who did not have devotion to the king. In that great city, all the people in the 4 castes worshipped guests as God, and all of them were endowed with gratitude. Who was not munificent or heroic, or not possessing prowess, and they lived long surrounded by sons, grandsons, and wives. They were all righteous and dedicated to the truth. The Kshatriyas were obedient to Brahmins, and Vaishyas cooperated with Kshatriyas, and Shudras assisted the other three castes, and each of them were occupied with their professions. That city, which was earlier governed by Manu, was foremost among men, and a supreme person of wisdom was governed in the same way by King Dasashtra. Ayodhya was filled with warriors, which was similar to mountain caves filled with lions, and they, like the flame of fire, were accomplished in the use of many weapons. It had excellent horses, similar to those of Indra, in areas like Cambodia, Balika, Vanu, and Sindhu. It had elephants like the intoxicated elephants of Vidya range. Strong elephants born in the Himalayas, which were blessed with great strength and looked like mountains. And there were also mighty elephants belonging to the clans of Ayurvatha, Mahapadma, Anjana, and Vamana. The city was full of intoxicated elephants, which were similar to mountains belonging to the race of Bhadra, Mandra, Mriga, and the interbreeds of these three races. The city, which was ruled by the great king Dasatra, spread to a distance of 4 miles and was worthy of its name. The revered king, who had great splendor, made his enemies into friends and ruled the city like the moon who ruled the stars. Ayodhya was auspicious, had strong gates and locks, adorned buildings, and was populated by thousands of men, and was ruled by the king who was equal in prowess to Lord Indra himself. Thus ends chapter 6. Chapter 7 is called Ayodhya's Greatness and Its Administration. Those ministers of the descendants of Ikshvaku had great virtues and were competent advisers and were skilled in judging the motives of people from their face and did all they could do for the good of the king. The king employed 8 ministers who were free from problems in dealing with people and were devoted to royal duties. The 8 ministers of the king were Drishti, Jayantha, Vijaya, Siddhartha, Artha, Sadaka, Asoka, Mantrapala, and Sumantra. The king had 2 highly desired sages in Vashistha and Vamadeva, who were the family priests. He had other able counselors, too, at his beck and call. These family priests were very well educated in all branches of knowledge. They felt ashamed to do unjust acts. They were greatly proficient, were with restrained senses, were rich, great souls who were expert in the Shastras, greatly valorous, fixed on their thoughts. They followed strictly words given to them. They possessed splendor of forgiveness and always spoke with a smile. They never uttered unjust words or lies, either in anger or for pecuniary gains, and in the midst of their enemies they knew what was done and what had to be done or which needs to be done through their spies. Those ministers were competent in their dealings, and in friendship they were trusted, and even in the case of their own sons they properly judged and imposed punishments. The ministers were expert in the collection of revenue, collecting people for army, and did not inflict punishments to those who were not their well-wishers if they did not commit any offense. They were greatly powerful, possessed steady perseverance, followed policy of state perfectly, and protected virtuous people living in the country. They did not cause problems to Kshatriyas and Brahmanas by word, thought, and deed, and filled the treasury. They inflicted punishment on a person only after proper examination of the weakness and strength of the case. The ministers who were of good conduct administered the kingdom unanimously, and there was not a single liar in the kingdom. In the city, even one wicked man who desired for another's wife, and serenity prevailed in the entire country. All the ministers wore very good clothes, were well adorned, and of a very good character, and they were vigilant to keep up the welfare of the king's welfare. They got inspiration from senior citizens like mother and father, renowned in their prowess. They guided all affairs using their intellect, and they were well known in countries outside theirs. The ministers were affluent and were well aware of the real estate of affairs in peace and war. They were experts in keeping their plans secret and were experts in understanding the points before coming to a decision. They were experts in jurisprudence and always spoke in a pleasing voice. The sin-free king, surrounded by these ministers with these virtues, ruled the earth. He was a tiger among men, and that king guarded his people, pleased and protected the righteous ones by gathering the effective intelligence he needed through spies, deserted the unrighteous ones, and was well known in all the three worlds and ruled well. He had many, many friends, and all tributary kings were humble to him. He killed all his enemies by his might, and there was no enemy who was equal or superior to him. He ruled the world just like Indra ruled the heavens. Surrounded by those ministers who advised him for his welfare, and with affection to him, who were skillful and capable, the king shined like the rising sun with his luminous rays. Thus ends chapter 7. So it was a very intense description of this city, which sounds, on first read, like a perfect place where some natural sense of communism comes out, and everyone is wealthy and everyone is doing well. But there was something here that didn't make sense to me. So he describes these ministers who properly examined people and inflicted punishment on those that needed it. But yet, from what we've read, nobody needed punishment because they were all perfect. The weak were risen up, the rich were humble, everyone had everything they needed. Right? Isn't that what we basically have read? Like, everyone has wealth, everyone has everything. So how could anything go wrong? And it says in chapter 7, line 13, in the city, even one wicked man who desired for another's wife did not exist, and serenity prevailed. But yet earlier, actually, verse 12 says there was not a single liar in the country. So we have no coveting of another's wife, we have serenity, and we have no lying, but yet these ministers are inflicting punishment. That makes no sense. It does make sense if you think about the fact that this is what ministers in this context were supposed to do. Doesn't make sense from a literary point of view. The cohesiveness of the story doesn't work. Because obviously the writer is going, well, this is what ministers do, not really realizing he's written this whole story where that action should not be needed. He should be writing here, the ministers never needed to punish anybody because life was perfect. Unless there's something else here that's not directly stated. Now, it does say that there are spies on enemies who don't live in the city. It's very interesting to me, just as a side note, that this great king who has all this wisdom believes in spying, which could be seen as a little bit malicious. Maybe, maybe not. But, besides that fact, there obviously is things wrong with the society because we have punishments. So something isn't perfect here. Yes, everybody has everything they need, but something is off. It doesn't really tell you what it is. But I think as I was reading this, I was like, okay, trying to put these pieces together. My thought is, the problem the city has is human nature. There may not be any liars. That might be true. And no, maybe everyone's happy and doesn't need to go after someone's wife or husband or have affairs or anything. But there's always human nature that says, I'm happy with what I got, but I'd really like something else. Or I did something that I thought was whatever, ethics, whatever, gets twisted and turned. I think that's what we see here. We have a city which would probably be desired by anyone who hears about the city. Who wouldn't want to live in a perfect city where we're all wealthy, we're doing okay, we're all well fed, we're all intelligent? Who wouldn't want to live here? But you can never have true equality, because it's essentially saying you can have a perfect city, but you'll always have human nature. That's what I'm feeling from this. And Marx actually said that. Marx himself never said, I am a communist and communist is the best. Marx said, the best form of government is the one that brings the most equality and the one where we're not all working 2 jobs and we're not all suffering and we can do these things and, we have literacy. The best form of government is the one that creates that, and that could be, for all we know, a republic or democracy or a king situation, a monarchy, who knows. Marx never was saying that communism is it, but he felt it was. And he always said, if you dig really into his books, there is always some sense of equality. I'm 5'9", maybe you're 5'1", maybe I can reach something higher than you. Well, obviously we have inequality here, so should we recreate our DNA so everyone's 5'1"? Well, wait a minute, now no one can reach the... There's always going to be something. And this shows this without saying it, I think. I think that's what it is. I can't make sense of this twisted description without thinking that there's a sense of human nature here. There was one other thing I want to make note of. It is in chapter 6, simply a definitional thing. And I've mentioned this many times on this channel, but I think it bears repeating, particularly given the age of this writing. So it says, line, 14, during that period there was not a single atheist. There was also line 12, there were none who did not kindle a sacrificial fire or did not perform sacrifices. And then line 8 had, there was not one who was an atheist who could be seen anywhere. So, no atheists in this town. What does that mean? Many of you will go, oh, that's horrible. We're all forced to be religious believers, and that's what certain, religious groups want. That's not exactly correct. Traditionally, up until, I believe, the 1800s, the definition of atheism in India, in Hinduism anyways, did not mean you don't believe in God. An atheist was one that didn't believe in Scripture. It is assumed everyone believed in God. The concept of atheism or agnosticism, or a concept of where there is no God in this world, doesn't enter into Hinduism or Indian talks, as far as I am aware. As far as what I've seen and seen other people talk about, there is no Bertrand Russell history of atheism. It just, this concept no more exists than one can believe there are humans who walk the earth who do not breathe air nor require sunshine. No such humans exist. As far as we know, maybe there's weird creatures underneath the ocean floors which we've never encountered, but they're not humans. Or maybe there's creatures in the mountains, but they're not humans. Every human needs air and sunshine to exist, to be healthy. Now maybe you don't need sunshine, but you need something to make up for the sunshine anyways. But you definitely need air. And so to say that there is people who don't breathe air is an impossibility that none of us even think about. To say that there are people who don't believe in God is also seen as an impossibility. It is not until we get to the modern world and the translation of the scriptures by Christians that we start to see the definition of atheism of the West being put on to Hinduism. And in that case, you would read this and go, oh my God, this is frightening. People don't have a freedom of religious choice. It doesn't say that. It says that they all know the Shastras, but the Shastras are huge. And there's lots of variation in the Shastras. You can be a Vaishnava, you can be a Shaivite, you can be a follower of Kali or whatever. I mean, I don't know exactly, but you get the point. So this just says everyone knows the Shastras. It doesn't say they all believe the same thing. And that's very important to remember. And sometimes these things, they pass by you and you don't realize that you're reading something that in a different context has really different meaning. So I just want to make that point. And I'm just going to leave it there. And thank you for watching. Please hang out with me as we go through this very detailed thing. and I await more of a story. We've had so many details already in these first 2 chapters. But anyways, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.